1972, Paris. A 48-year-old director named Bernardo Bertolucci was making a film about sex, power, and anonymity. The film was called Last Tango in Paris. It would become one of the most controversial works in cinema history, not because of what it showed, because of what it did. To a 19-year-old actress named Maria Schneider, Bertolucci cast Maria in the spring of 1972. She was young, unknown, vulnerable. She had done small roles. Nothing prepared her for this. Nothing prepared her for Marlon Brando. Brando was 48, a legend, the greatest actor of his generation, returning to serious filmmaking. The film was about an American widower and a young French woman having an anonymous affair in a Paris apartment. Bertolucci promised Maria it would be artistic, serious, a portrait of grief and desire. She trusted him. She was 19. He was an acclaimed director. Brando was a god. She signed on. She thought she understood what the film would be. She was wrong. The shoot began in early 1972. Paris locations, intimate scenes, nudity Maria had agreed to. But Bertolucci had a method. He believed in spontaneity, in keeping actors off balance, vulnerable, real. He didn't tell Maria everything. He thought surprise created authenticity. Maria thought she was making art. Bertolucci was making something else. One morning, Bertolucci pulled Brando aside. No Maria, just the two men. He had an idea for a scene, something that would shock, disturb, create the feeling of violation he wanted. A sexual scene, but not choreographed, not discussed, not something Maria would expect. Brando listened, and he agreed. They didn't tell Maria what they'd planned. They didn't explain the scene before filming. They wanted her genuine reaction, her shock, her discomfort. They wanted it real. So when the cameras rolled, Maria Schneider experienced the scene for the first time. And her shock was real, because she hadn't consented to what happened. The scene became infamous. Critics called it groundbreaking. Audiences were stunned. What they didn't know, what no one knew for 35 years, was that Mariah's reaction wasn't acting. It was violation, captured on film, preserved forever, and she would spend the rest of her life trying to recover. After filming ended, Maria struggled. She had expected to feel proud. She felt something else. Used. Humiliated. Something had been taken from her, and she couldn't articulate what. The film premiered in 1972. Critics praised it. Brando was called brilliant. Bertolucci was called a genius. Maria Schneider's trauma was called art. She tried to speak about it in the 1970s. But carefully. Film was her career. Brando was powerful. She said the experience had been difficult, that she had felt uncomfortable, that boundaries had been crossed. But she couldn't say more. Not then. Not while careers depended on silence. So she kept working. And the silence became another kind of violation. The film followed her everywhere. Interviewers asked about it. Always. The scene. Her body. Her choices. She tried to move on. She couldn't. The film was her legacy, but not in the way she had hoped. She battled depression, addiction. The industry that had used her offered no support. Maria Schneider became known for one film, one scene, one moment she had never fully consented to. Brando never apologized, never acknowledged what he and Bertolucci had done. He did more Last Tango interviews. He talked about artistic risk, about pushing boundaries. He never mentioned Mariah's boundaries, the ones he and Bertolucci had ignored. In 2004, Marlon Brando died. He never spoke to what happened, never took responsibility. 2007, Maria Schneider, now 55, gave an interview. She was ill. She knew time was short, and she decided to tell the truth, the full truth, about what Bertolucci and Brando had done. She explained, they didn't tell her about the scene. They wanted her surprise. They won. Ted her violation. For art. For authenticity. For a director's vision. They used her. She described how it felt. To be 19. To trust. To be betrayed by men who should have protected her. She said she felt raped. Not physically, but emotionally. A violation of consent captured on film. And she said she'd never recovered. That the scene had damaged her in ways she'd spent decades trying to heal. The world listened. Some believed her. Some still defended the film. Some called it art, not harm. In 2011, Maria Schneider died. She was 58. She'd lived with the weight of that scene for 39 years. The film that made her famous had broken something in her, and it never healed. She died knowing some people still valued the art more than her trauma. She died knowing Brando had never apologized, had never acknowledged what had done. 2013, 2 years after Mariah's death, Bernardo Bertolucci gave an interview at a film school. He admitted it. On camera, he and Brando had planned the scene without telling Maria. He said they wanted her to react as a girl, not as an actress. They won. Ted genuine shock. He smiled when he said it. He seemed proud. He called it a filmmaking choice. The video went viral in 2016. The Me Too era. Suddenly people understood what Maria had tried to say for decades. This wasn't art. This was abuse. A director and a star conspiring to violate a young actress' consent. Bertolucci faced backlash. He defended himself. He said it wasn't sexual assault, just a creative decision. But Maria was dead. She couldn't respond. She couldn't see the world finally believe her. The film still exists. It's still screened, still studied, still called a masterpiece by some. But the conversation changed. Mariah's words from 2007 were re-examined. Her trauma was finally centered. And people asked, was it worth it? Was one scene worth destroying a young woman's life? Bertolucci said yes. That's what makes great art. Brando never answered. He was already gone. Maria Schneider never wanted to be defined by Last Tango. But the industry wouldn't let her escape. The scene followed her to every audition, every interview, every attempt to move forward. She tried to make peace with it. She tried to find meaning. She tried to heal. She died trying. Today, film schools show Last Tango. They discuss the cinematography, the performance, the cultural impact. Some mention Maria, some don't. Some call her brave. Some still focus on Brando. But if you watch the scene now, knowing what happened, you're watching a violation. You're watching a 19-year-old woman being used. And you're watching two men who knew exactly what they were doing. Marlon Brando built a career on truth, on authenticity, on revealing human complexity. But in 1972, his pursuit of truth became someone else's trauma, and he never acknowledged it. Maria Schneider deserved better. From Brando, from Bertolucci, from an industry that valued art over consent.
For decades,
she deserved an
kept
apology.
silent.
She
But today
never got
that
one.
silence
This is the story
ends.
Brando never
My
told.
liberation
The one that
begins.
complicates every performance,
The
every
truth
accolade,
is, this
every
pain has
legacy.
been weighing
Because genius
on me.
doesn't excuse harm.
But
Fame doesn't
speaking,
erase
it feels
responsibility.
Like setting
Art
the
doesn't
weight
justify
free.
violation. Maria Schneider's
The
voice,
truth is,
silenced
this
for so
pain
long,
has been
finally
weighing
spoke
on
in
me.
2007.
But
by then,
speaking, it
the damage
feels
was
like
done.
setting
And
the
Brando,
weight free.
the man who claimed to understand human truth, had already chosen his silence. 1972, a director and a star decided art mattered more than a young woman's consent. 2011, that young woman died, still carrying the weight of what they'd done. 2024, we're still watching the film, still calling Brando a genius, still debating whether it was worth it. Maria Schneider already answered. It wasn't.